Want to welcome in Senior Advisor of the U.S. Agency for Global Media, Kari joining me right now. It's always great to see you, lady. President Trump's rescission package strips about $1.1 billion in funding for the Corporation for so-called public broadcasting. Here's CNN's little Brian Stelter.
No, this is the end of a publicly funded media era. This dates back to the days of black and white television. You know, back in the 60s, Congress saw a value for PBS and NPR, but no more.
Yeah, thank God it's ending. Kari, real Americans are not lamenting the end of state-run media, are they?
No, they're cheering. They're standing up and cheering. I mean, just because it's been going on since the late 1950s when it was in black and white TV, the same argument they're making as President Trump brings down and scales back Voice of America, one of the outlets that I oversee. These are dinosaurs. These have not kept up with the time. They're relics, and we shouldn't continue to pour hard-earned money from American taxpayers into them. We need to modernize and do things the right way. And when it comes to NPR and PBS, they've gone so radical to the left. You know, look at the Washington, D.C. headquarters. 87 people working there who are Democrats and 0 Republicans. Come on. It's biased. If they want to keep doing biased news, they can pay for it themselves. The hardworking American people shouldn't have to foot the bill.
Amen to that. By the way, speaking of Voice of America, there's this ex-Voice of America employee, 64-year-old Seth Jason, allegedly threatened to murder Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene and her family. Federal prosecutors say the threats were made between October 2023 and January 21st of this year, before President Trump's return to the Oval Office. According to reports, he used phones in the control rooms where the broadcasters were reporting to make his threats. Now, see, in my view, this story shows how dangerous and incompetent the vetting process used by this bloated and unaccountable government is. They'll hire any psycho, it seems. What does it say to you?
Anybody who would do this is a psycho. You're absolutely right. It's a dangerous person using phone call or using phones, taxpayer-funded phones at a taxpayer-funded facility, a taxpayer-funded employee on taxpayer-funded time to allegedly make death threats and assassination threats against a sitting member of Congress. It is despicable and it's sickening. And if he's proven to be guilty, I hope they throw the book at him. 27 years in federal prison is what this gentleman is facing. And these threats were serious. I mean, for 15 months rather, Marjorie Taylor Greene was living in fear that somebody was going to show up at one of her events and shoot and kill her. Her staff was living in fear. Their families were living in fear. And these calls were coming from inside Voice of America. I'm sickened by it. I'm glad that they finally arrested him. We got to give Judge Janine, who is the U.S. attorney out of the District of Columbia, credit for getting on top of this and taking it very seriously. These threats are serious, and this man is now behind bars.
Well, it's a good thing. And again, another reason why we should never put Democrats in charge of any government in any position in this country, because look at what happens, folks. Trump, in the meantime, Kari, is taking many agencies in the executive branch down to what is known as statutory minimums, a basic level of staffing that is required from the original statutes that created those agencies. How effective do you think this will be in protecting America from the out-of-control bureaucracy that Washington has descended into?
Well, there's a lot of agencies that just are, as I said, archaic. They don't need to exist anymore. And President Trump would love to just do away with them. As a matter of fact, my agency is one of them. He's calling for the elimination starting in October of this year. And unfortunately, for many of them, there's some statute that has been built up that is propping up those agencies, the deadweight agencies. And so until we can eliminate the agency, we've got to follow the law. And that's where he said, bring these down to the statutory minimum, just what is required by law and no more. And we've got judges who are fighting that, judges who are trying to step in and run agencies and interfere in the executive branch. But I think President Trump is brilliant. It's a great first step before you eliminate an agency to bring it down to its minimum. These things in D.C., Chris, I don't need to tell you this. They start off small and they grow. And even when it's mission accomplished and they finish the job, They never want to shrink it back down or say, okay, we've accomplished what we set out to do. Now we can set up shop. I half jokingly say, I'm glad the federal government never opened a typewriter factory, or I guarantee you there'd still be 2,000 to 3,000 employees there, and they would still be forcing, the making of typewriters because, well, we've always been doing it. Why would we want to stop?
Right. Nothing more permanent than a temporary government program. Look, I only got about a minute left, but I want you to comment on the story I covered in the preamble. President Trump is threatening to sue the Wall Street Journal after they published a hatchet job article with this so-called birthday letter from Trump to Epstein. You never see the Never Trump media publish such journalistically questionable garbage against Democrats. Why do you think that is?
That story was almost comical if it weren't just such another poke in the eye. It's almost comical. Anybody who could believe, even if you had half a brain, you know that is a garbage piece of journalism. And I hope he sues Rupert Murdoch into the poorhouse, because frankly, this kind of deception that has been inflicted on the public is diabolical, and we're tired of it. We're tired of the mainstream media lying, trying to dissuade people from supporting a president who's doing everything he can to help rebuild this country and put us back on the right track. I'm really sick and tired of the mainstream media, and the only way they're going to stop is if they're sued into oblivion. So kudos to President Trump for standing up and saying, yeah, I'm going to go right for Rupert Murdoch. We're going to sue him, and I support that all the way.
Kari Lake, thank you very much. I always appreciate the time and the analysis you share with us.